Lisa. A ver, we can press the button too. And I'm going to use Lisa. How I pronounce your last name? It's very
Rombout.
Dutch.
Yeah,
Rombout.
It's French actually.
Rombout.
I think originally it's French, so it's probably Rombout.
Ah,
Rombout.
But that's not how I usually say it.
Ok. Es una humana interesada en muchas cosas, incluida la codificación creativa, los cyborgs, la realidad virtual, la realidad normal, los cuentos de hadas y el cerebro humano. Actualmente, Lisa está trabajando con locura en un proyecto multidisciplinar para obtener su doctorado en ciencias conectivas e inteligencia artificial, organizando reuniones de codificación creativa, hackatones y enseñando programación a niños y adultos. Lisa Rombout is a human interest in quite a lot of things, including creative coding, cyborgs, virtual reality, regular reality, fairy tales, and the human brain. She is currently underlining this multidisciplinary madness by working toward a PhD in cognitive science and artificial intelligence. Organize creative coding methods and hackathons, and teaching programming to children and adults. Wow, so cool introduction. And I'm very happy she's in here. We working together in the same university, Tilbury University. And when you see here, as in day, is at the University del Bosque in Colombia, and also she's very happy you are in here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome, Lisa.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. So as I understand correctly, I can control the slides like this,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Yeah,
and we pay
okay.
attention to you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Let's start.
Okay. So my name is Lisa Rombout, as Alexander so kindly introduced me. Yo hablo un poquito de español, pero not that much, so I'll just do this talk in English, otherwise you won't understand
¿Cómo te llamas?
anything of it.
¿Cómo te llamas?
Yeah, llamo Lisa.
Ah.
That's about all I can do. So yeah, I work in the Department of Cognitive Science and Artificial Intelligence at the University of Tilburg. We look to the brains of people and the brains of computers, basically, and mainly how those two interact with each other and communicate with each other. Myself, I do my research in the field of embodiment, or well, envoicement, I should say, and I am going to explain to you today what exactly that is. So the question is, how does your brain know where your body starts and ends? If you, for instance, look at your hands or your arm or your nose, does your brain know that that part is a part of your body, and for instance, the table or something is not? That seems maybe very, very simple, but it can become pretty difficult because a table doesn't really look like a hand. But the hand of someone else, or the hand of your virtual avatar in this environment, that looks quite like your own hands. So how does your brain know where this boundary is between the world and other people and yourself? So this boundary between the self and the rest of the world is a lot more flexible than people often think. I had a little movie here about rubber hand illusion, but unfortunately that wouldn't work here, so I'm just going to explain what it's like. Basically, you have your hand is hidden behind the screen, and as you can see here with the person on this picture, your hand is hidden behind the screen, and a rubber hand is placed on the table in front of you, and someone else is stroking over your hands and the rubber hands in the same way and on the same place. You do this for a while, about 20 seconds, 30 seconds is usually enough. And well, you should look this video up on YouTube, because it's quite funny to watch. At some point, another person comes in and sticks a fork into the rubber hand on the table. And the person who is undergoing the rubber hand illusion is really shocked and pulls back his left hand, because even though rationally, I mean, this person is of course intelligent enough to realize that the rubber hand is not his own hand, but on a subconscious level, your brain starts to believe that this rubber hand really is your hand and that you're being attacked if the rubber hand is attacked. So people pull back their hands. Their heart rate goes higher, adrenaline goes through their body, even their immune system starts sending help to that hand because they think it is damaged. Um, so yeah, you see this very strong and very flexibility of where the self starts and ends, because it just takes 20-30 seconds before something like this is established, even though your brain presumably knows, right, that it's been living in your body for your whole life, so you think it know what it looked like, but apparently it doesn't. So these type of embodiment illusions work very, very quickly. You can do different types of illusions as well. For instance, in virtual reality. So you look down in the virtual world, like the world that we are in currently. Only I think most of you are seeing this world through your screen and not through virtual reality glasses. But if you have a body in the virtual world, you look down, you see a body that maybe if you also do body tracking, it moves in the same way as your own body is moving. And your brain thinks, okay, well, that's probably my body then. So you can do some very nice tricks with that mechanism, because what if your virtual body suddenly has an extra arm or maybe a tail? It turns out that our brains are pretty okay with that. They don't have a lot of problems with it. So this idea of what your own body is, how it looks, I mean, I'm currently blue and I can tell you in the real world I'm not blue, is much more flexible than you would think at first glance. Um, Also, the body that we think we are in has an influence on how we are going to behave in that body. And sometimes even afterwards. So, if you put people, for instance, in a very big, large virtual body, they are starting to behave much more aggressively in what's the words? Um, where they in discussions with other people where they're trying to for instance get their point across, or convince the other person of their opinion. So why is that the case? Your body is sort of the interface between your brain and the world. It has a whole range of senses that basically send a lot of information all the time to your brain to tell it what is going on, what the world looks like, including what your own body is doing. And your brain doesn't really have anything else available to it but this information that is sent to it by the body. So if you look from the perspective of the brain, if your body doesn't sense it and doesn't send it through, it doesn't exist. And it's very important for the brain to get a clear and accurate sense of what is happening in the external world, just simply to survive. So your brain gets all of those signals, whatever you see or hear or smell or feel or taste. But also, I mean, these are the 5 classic senses that all of us recognize, but there's more, of course. It's also your balance, your heartbeat, your breathing, whether you have to go to the toilet, whether you are hungry or thirsty, and a lot of feedback about what your muscles are doing, for instance. And then this process of integration happens where your brain tries to bring all of this information together and try to form an image of what the world and your body looks like. And this is where things can go wrong, because your brain does not think that all of this information is as important as the other bits of information. For instance, humans have this tendency to think that vision is very, very important, much more important than what we detect with our other senses. So seeing is believing, basically. So if your brain sees a hand where something is stroking it, and at the same time you also feel that stroking, then they just are going to disregard all of the other information, because to your brain, the most logical explanation of this feeling is that that hand that you're seeing is your hand. And that means you can also use other sensory information to sort of trick your brain. And that is where my research is about the envoicement illusion. So speaking is very complex. You have to translate your thoughts into language, and you have to translate that language again in smaller and bigger muscle movements that make sure that air is going through your vocal cords in exactly the right way to make certain sounds. And there's a lot of feedback in this process to make sure that it's all correct, what you're saying, that you don't like stumble over your words. Um, your brain is getting all the time updates from all of those little muscles, and you also listen to yourself to check if everything still goes well. So an example of an experiment that we did is to have people listen to the voice of someone else. And this was actually also, they were also in a virtual reality environment. So they also had a virtual body. And while they were in that virtual body, they also heard someone else's voice. And at the same time, they got vibration feedback on their throat, on top of their vocal cords. And then what we see is that some people, not as many as with the rubber hand illusion, but some people get this very strong feeling that they are pronouncing the words that they hear. So they feel that the voice that they're hearing, even though it's completely another person's voice, is produced by they themselves. And that's effect is, especially if you combine it with a virtual body illusion as well, it can get relatively strong. So you really get this feeling that you are speaking in the virtual world through your virtual avatar, even though you didn't choose the words yourself. So why do we do this research? An illusion like that can make a virtual world better and more effective, because people might get a stronger feeling that all of it is real and that they are really located in that world. Maybe it could help to what's the word? To sort of drive a robot, to control a robot, I should say, more effectively from a distance. And it could also help people who have issues with their speaking, to make their body and their brain sort of get used to the feedback. But what I mainly find very interesting is what kind of consequences these types of illusions have for social interactions. So why do we feel so connected with people around us if we are doing synchronous behavior, synchronous vocal behavior, or other behavior like the wave in a soccer stadium, or when we are clapping all together when we are at a concert of an artist? Why, if we are singing in a choir, do we see that choirs have such a strong bond with each other? And why do we sing at all in a social context, like religious ceremonies or birthdays, and other behaviors such as soldiers who are marching all at the same time synchronously? What could be is that the boundary between ourselves and others sort of becomes vaguer in these situations, and that we kind of create an embodiment or an envoicement illusion for ourselves to feel more connected to other people. With that question, I would like to end this talk, and if we still have time for questions, then I'd be happy to answer some.
Sure. Oh, so interesting. We can press the number 2. And if you want to make a question, you can press the button 0 here. She have a question. Liliana, tell us. You can unmute.
Hi, thank you.
Hello.
Do you hear me?
Yes,
Hello,
perfect.
do you hear me?
Hello.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So, first, I would like to congratulate Lisa. I think that that is actually great. I was reading the other day an article that said why artificial intelligence needs a body, and I think your study really answer or helps to answer this definition because usually when we're talking about virtual reality and those type of technologies, we're always thinking about the thinking substance and not the physical substance. So I think it really helps us to understand the importance of that Cartesian dualism between the thinking substance and the physical substance. So I don't know if you have any opinion about the term of disembodied intelligence. I would like to know your opinion about that as you're an expert on that field. So I would love to know your opinion about the term like disembodied intelligence and how the physical substance really is very important in the virtual reality field, especially on the social interaction, as you mentioned previously. But really, congratulations, and I would love to know your opinion on that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, you were quite silent from my end. I think I got the gist of your question, but I didn't get the term you wanted me to comment on. Maybe you can put it in the chats.
And also a little bit is the volume. You need to press the button. The volume of your computer, and then we can hear more clearly you.
Yeah, I just on my mobile phone, maybe
yeah.
It sounds like a little bit.
Yeah, I got the gist of your question. If you could put the term you were mentioning in the chat, that would probably help us.
Sure,
it's basically about embodied cognition, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the term that I just asked about, it's about the disembodied intelligence of intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Then I
Okay,
understand which way you're going. Yeah. So that is indeed very interesting, and it's a very interesting discussion going on in AI that has been going on for quite a while. Also, generally in cognition as well. Do you need a body to be truly intelligent? Does an artificial intelligence need a body to be truly called an intelligence? Is having a body necessary for um, for understanding the human context well enough to be able to be intelligence to our standards, basically? So there's lots of answers and lots of thoughts around that question, of course. But what I would like to go into, I think, now quickly is that body is a very fluid concept by itself, right? So if I say body, you might first think of a human body and the kind of body that we are all used to. But especially in the research that I'm doing, I'm considering, for instance, the voice also part of a body. And as we already see, like right now, a lot of artificial intelligence that we interact with, like smart homes, for instance. Not sure if you can already really call that an artificial intelligence, but they actually mainly consist of a voice. So their body is kind of the voice that they have. And as soon as you sort of start thinking about embodiment in that way, that's bodies has a broader application than just a biological human body that is physical. It becomes much more interesting because that means that we also have to consider other types of bodies. Artificial intelligences that are in a computer have the computer as a body, and the computer has certain sensors and certain effectors, just as a regular human body would have. So if we can ever really get rid of that concept of the body, I think even the things that are called disembodied intelligences, they have to have inputs and outputs, and therefore they kind of already have a type of body, I would say. That might be a very bold claim, but here we go. I said it.
Oh, wow, it's super interesting. And Lisa, tell me, Why you choose your color of the skin the another color? This can influence in the visuals.
I mean, I could, if I could have chosen a tail and cat ears, I would have done that.
Really? Ah, okay. That's so sweet. And okay, and then Lisa, she is very smart, and also she working with some hackathons, and I love the work which she make all time with children, with younger, but also with the people on university, and also with our teachers, no, like a little bit more older, no, they're super younger, and. You are very passionate this. What is the tips? Because these people were just seeing here and also watching you in YouTube in the future and something want to know which tips can use when make a hackathon, because we make a hackathons with technology, but you have a lot of experience. You can tell us what we can do.
Oh dear. um, well, I sort of stumbled into that a little bit, and the way I started organizing these meetups and these hackathons was basically I started organizing the kinds of events that I would like to attend. So at the time, this happened in Amsterdam, and at the time in Amsterdam, you had basically two kinds of meetups very broadly. You had very large meetups that were a lot about networking, and yeah, just everyone was very high strung. And then you had these smaller meetups that were basically just groups of friends, and if you would come by as a stranger, they would sort of look at you like, "What? There's a strange person here." So I and a friend of mine, we really wanted to have something in between where it was kind of casual, but still a big enough group that you sort of just could show up if you wanted to. And that all kinds of creative coding in this case were welcomed. So people who did it from an artistic perspective, people who did it from a scientific perspective, anything that people were doing which was slightly related to creative coding, we were basically happy to host. So that's what I would recommend. Think about what kind of event you would really like to attend, and don't let yourself be too constrained by how you think these kinds of events should be organized. For instance, for the hackathons, I really generally dislike it when there is a competition at a hackathon, because I think it restricts creativity, because people start making something to win the prize instead of making something because they think it's cool and creative. Now, of course, that depends totally on what your goal is, and you can do a competition if you want to. But for me, that was that realization of like, wait, I don't have to do in a competition. I can just organize it in exactly the way I like. And probably I'm not that special. There are other people who will like that as well. So that's what I would recommend.
Oh, wow. We can press the button 1 and 2.